8:28 a.m.
Hi teacher, I have a question. How do I improve my English?
Shadowing, David.
3 weeks later.
Hi teacher, another question. How do I expand my vocabulary?
Alright, go ahead and shadow, David. When you have a problem in life, just shadowing.
Many months later.
Hi teacher, I have another question. How do I become a confident speaker in English?
Keep shadowing, David. How many times do I have to tell you, David? It's shadowing.
2,000 years later.
I promise you, this is going to be the last question. How do I sweep my floor?
God damn it! Shadowing, David.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So you guys actually just watched some of the scenarios that really happen in reality. So as a learner of English, sometimes we do have a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, and we don't know where to go in order to get the answer we need. And the only person that we can ask is our teacher. But when we ask those questions to the teacher might not know what is the problem and how he's gonna answer the question for us. So that's why we often find ourselves stuck. So all the questions that you guys just watched from those scenarios, there's just one thing beyond all of it. And that is, how can I improve my English? Or how can I get to the fluency point in my English learning journey that I want? I really hate to admit this, but I used to ask these questions a lot, and whenever I ask these questions, my teacher just gave me something that I don't really want, or the answer from him or her really did not satisfy me. So we do want to improve our English, and we want to be a confident or fluent speaker in English. That's why we want to find that one solution for our problems. But let me tell you guys this. In order to speak English, there are actually quite a few things that are involved in the process, and if you perfect every single one of them, you'll have the skills or the ability to speak whatever and whenever you want. Now another thing that I hate to admit, that there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all method that you can apply in order to generally improve your English. If you want to build up your vocabulary, or if you want to, improve your speaking or listening skills, you have to go for some certain practice in order to improve those areas. But in my opinion, there's one technique that can help you improve in a variety of areas of English. And that technique is called the shadowing technique, or a lot of people call it imitation technique. Now, maybe the name of the technique has been around for a long time, so that's the reason why that a lot of you guys might have heard this one before. But in this video, I'm gonna make it a little bit different compared to those videos on YouTube or on any other social media platforms talking about the same topic. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you guys some of the things that you should be careful when shadowing, and also the benefits of applying this technique to generally improve your English. If any of you guys don't know what the shadowing technique is, let me tell you in short like this. Shadowing technique is applied when you are trying to repeat something that you just heard, whether it is from a show, a movie, or just a YouTube video. And your goal is to repeat the exact same thing that you heard, including all the components that that person is using. And yes, you hear me right, all the components, including their accent, the intonation, the way that they raise the intonation and drop the intonation at the end, something like that. And also their pronunciation, right? And not to mention that you guys also have to figure out the exact vocab that they're using for that particular sentence, as well as the sentence structure, right? Everything will give you the ability to repeat. And if you don't know what it is, you really have to look at the subtitles. Now, for a lot of you guys who are an intermediate or advanced learner, you might think that the technique sounds a little bit easy for you guys to do, but trust me, when you are actually getting down to the step-by-step guide of how to do it and how to do it accurately to improve your English, you might face with a lot of challenges and difficulties. And that is the reason why that I want to talk about some of the stuff or some of the things that you have to keep in mind to avoid, or maybe just to be careful when shadowing. But first off, I really want to touch upon some of the benefits of applying this technique. Why should you guys apply this technique to improve your English? And I think the best way to go about this is to talk about my own personal experiences. For me, I actually didn't start applying this technique until 6 months ago. And after 6 months of applying this, I actually started noticing a lot of changes in the way that I speak, in the way that I listened, especially when I was watching some of the movies or some of the shows with my girlfriend. And I'm really happy about the results that I got. That's why I decided to share my experiences with you guys. Now the benefits should start from the technique being one of the greatest replacements of all the apps, all the notebooks that you've been using to improve or expand your vocabulary range. Now let's first talk about notebooks and all the notebooks that you've been using. So if you experience something like you wanted to learn more vocab and then you decided to use one of the notebooks that you bought from the bookstore, and for the first couple days you were really excited and eager to write everything that you love into that notebook, but you didn't keep up with it. After 3 months or 4, you just decided to stop. For the first couple pages, they were like full of words and everything that you wrote in it, but then the rest of the book was absolutely empty. But let me tell you this, you're not alone, because I personally believe that a lot of people have the same problem, even for me. I actually bought a lot of notebooks and I started writing a lot, but within just the first couple of pages, and none of the notebooks that I used were used to the last page of it. But why did we give up on using those notebooks? Because they were really boring, dry, and plain, right? We didn't have any context to imagine. We didn't have any, emotional connection with it. And when you realized that you couldn't use it, you couldn't apply it into your daily conversations, and that is when you decided to stop completely. And another thing is all the apps that are available online, you can install easily in your phone or your computer. Of course, those apps are designed in a way that something that we learned before is going to be popped up in our screen. And when it pops up, what are we going to do? We're going to look at it and review it, right? And some of the apps that are so great at probably giving us some of the activities or games that we can play with. However, the content within those apps are not probably associated with any context or real life situations. That's why regardless of how many times you repeat or review those expressions and vocab words, you're still unable to use them in your daily conversations. Now the second benefit that I want to talk about is all about listening skills. And when it comes to shadowing, listening skills are the big one. But before talking about any of it, I would like to ask you this. Have you ever heard of passive listening in order to improve your English? Have you ever watched those videos that are telling you to probably listen to some English while being asleep? And if the answer from you is yes, let me tell you this. That kind of listening would never give you the ability to improve your listening skills. Why? Because a lot of people that are living abroad in those English-speaking countries like the US, Canada, Australia, you name it. But they keep listening to the same stuff over and over again every single day from their colleagues, from people on the street, or on TV, right? But if they don't know what exactly that they're hearing, or they don't go look it up in a dictionary or Google, then they're not going to be able to understand. Even if they hear the same thing for the next time, they are not going to be able to understand it. So if you want to understand what they really mean, try to learn what you hear, or at least look it up in a dictionary. Now we're done with passive listening because we know for sure that it's not going to work for us. So if passive listening is not going to work for us, what will? And the answer is active listening will. When you're actively listening to something, you're actually trying to understand it. So when you're shadowing, not only do you have to understand their general meaning, but also you have to know all of its components. And those components might be the vocabulary that they're using as well as their sentence structure. And don't forget that when you're shadowing, you have to repeat exactly the same thing that you just heard. So it can be hard and difficult at first for you to do it, but when you're used to it, everything will be worth it. And most importantly, that you don't waste your time. But by doing this or applying this technique, you're actually saving time for yourself. And because it might be hard at the beginning when you first try applying this technique, that's why choosing the right materials to start with is something that you should consider. Maybe you should start with something that's easy at first, and then when you are practicing it, just try to improve your understanding of it, and you'll be amazed how much you improve over time. Now, the next benefit that I would like to touch upon is all about expanding your vocabulary. So when it comes to listening and speaking in English, vocab plays a very important role in giving you the ability to understand and engage in a conversation. But that doesn't mean that you have to learn all of the advanced vocabulary. Because like I said in the previous video, if native speakers don't know what they mean, just don't bother wasting your time and learn it. And you know what? The amazing thing about this technique is when you apply it daily, then you'll equip yourself with enough vocab for you to deal with those day-to-day conversations in your life. But one thing to keep in mind though, that you don't have to memorize every single word you hear or you encounter when practicing. Because chances are that you'll face them in the next episode of the same show or in a completely different show. And like I said earlier, in order to practice this technique successfully, you have to be able to repeat exactly the same thing you hear. When you repeat something, you have to use your voice and your sound to repeat. That's why not only do you understand its meaning, you have to be able to master its pronunciation as well. And when you're not only understanding, but being able to pronounce it correctly, that vocab word will stick in your mind for a lot longer. And now when it comes to the last benefit of applying this technique, I have to mention the speaking skills. But when we speak, not only that we have to have enough vocab, we have to understand what they're saying so we can respond accurately, but we have to have all the components and all the skills that we need in order to speak perfectly. Now the results in speaking skills might take you a little time to develop, but when you develop it, you'll have the ability to speak without thinking too much about what you are going to use or how are you going to be able to say it. And the reason that you don't have to think too much about it is because the materials that you use to practice shadowing with are actually designed with specific context or real-life situations. And when you choose an interesting thing to shadow with, not only that you do understand every single vocab that they're using, but now you have all the ideas. And then when it comes to an appropriate situation in your life, you know how to use it. And trust me on this one. So when it comes to speaking in English, there are a lot of phrases and expressions that you have to be automatically using without thinking about it too much. For example, if you meet some strangers on a street, and when you greet that person, when it takes about 2 or maybe 1/10 a second to think about what to say next, are you going to be able to have time to think about what you are going to say? Probably not, right? So you have to use your muscle memories. You have to use something that you have built for a long time. And within that particular situation, you speak without thinking. And yes, I also mentioned about the ideas of what to speak, right? So within a reality TV show or a movie, if you choose a good one, all the ideas are actually something that native speakers use every day, as opposed to something that you usually see in a textbook, which is not applicable or practical in real life. And let me tell you this, not only that you know what to speak and how to speak, now you are going to be able to speak faster and your accent will be improved over time as well. And those are the benefits of applying this technique. So the next section that I would like to touch upon is all about some of the things that you should be avoiding or at least be careful when shadowing. And the first thing is, you should prepare yourself with the right attitude and perspective at the get-go. I really hate to admit this. Nobody has ever told me that I should prepare the right attitude. So I thought the shadowing skills was something that I can do without having a problem. And I thought my level in English around that time was kind of good, so it was gonna allow me to do it without having any problems or difficulties. But I was dead wrong. When shadowing, I actually started realizing that there were a lot of things that I didn't know. And just because you pay too much attention to the speed and all the components, that's why you are shocked by how fast they speak and how much vocab that you don't know. And now it's my turn to tell you guys that you have to understand that this technique is going to take time, effort, and patience for you to get through it or for you to get it right. And when you're able to stick with it for a long time, you'll be amazed by how much of the improvement that you make along the way. And the next thing that you should keep in mind is just don't bother moving on to the next materials or the new stuff to practice when you are not completely able to understand or use whatever you've learned from the previous one. And my suggestion is, with one short video or one movie, maybe it should take you about 2 weeks or 3. Also, don't write too much in your notebook, but only the things that you are really passionate about or you are truly in love with, because you don't want to make your notebook full of words and really boring for you when it comes to times to actually review your notebook and whatever you wrote in it. It becomes really intimidating and really boring. So make sure you don't do it. And like I said before, everything that you faced once, you might face them again in the next episode of the same show, or maybe in a different show or a different movie. And by repeating them over and over again, that is the best way to learn vocab. And the next thing is, don't forget to apply whatever you shadow within your real life conversations. And by applying it into your daily conversation successfully, now you know it works for you. And so if it works for you, you won't be discouraged very easily. And the last thing that you guys should know is when you are shadowing something that's new, something that's kind of hard to understand at first. But don't worry, just give yourself some time to listen to what you've heard a couple times and try to guess its meaning. And when you can't go any further with your understanding for that thing, now you can look at the subtitles and understand it fully. And if you do it this way, your listening skills will be improving over time a lot. And this is something that I experienced with my own practice as well. And I'm telling you this, everybody can do this. And as long as they are patient and passionate about what they're doing, and as long as they are sticking with the practice for a long time, they'll receive the results they want. Alright, I know that I've been speaking a lot in this video, so I'll stop right here. And if you guys are still having some of the concerns or questions related to this technique, please leave me a comment below and I'll help you out. Also, I hope you guys find this video helpful and interesting to your learning process. And in order to see more videos like this, just don't forget to like and share this video, as well as subscribe to our channel to learn more. Until the next video, have a good day. Bye bye.